Hey guys, today I want to talk about some terms in the Bible that are used to describe different groups of people. The terms Hebrew, Israelite, and Jew are often interchanged and used to describe the same group of people, but I want to do a quick breakdown of where each one of those words comes from and who it's describing at that time that it's being used in the Bible. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about any countries that exist today or any people that exist today in the sense of like how those terms are used today. I'm just talking about how the Bible uses those terms and how it applies to the people at the time in those books. So essentially, starting from the beginning, you have Adam and Eve. They have Cain and Abel and Seth, and there's a lineage that comes from there. Ultimately, you get to Noah. Noah makes it through the flood, and he has three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Um, for the purposes of today's conversation, we're just talking about the line of Shem. Anybody who comes from the line of Shem is a Shemite, or what would be considered Semitic in today's terms. So there's some lineage after Shem, and then you get to Abraham. Now, Abraham, his story in the Bible is the first time we hear the word Hebrew. He's considered a Hebrew. Hebrew is a written word and it's also a language. So the Bible was written in Hebrew and they spoke Hebrew basically. Abraham had Isaac, who had a son named Jacob, and Jacob essentially was renamed Israel. So Abraham was not an Israelite, Abraham was a Hebrew. Jacob is the first time we see the term Israel used in the Bible, and it's used to describe him and all of his sons that come after. Now, Jacob had 12 sons, and these 12 sons ultimately became what was known as the tribes of Israel. So there were 12 tribes: Reuben, Simeon. Let me back up. Jacob had 12 sons. He had Reuben, Simeon, Joseph, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Levi, Judah, and Benjamin. Now, Joseph had two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and the tribes ended up being named after them. So Joseph was not named as a tribe per se. Levi became the priesthood. So Levi was not necessarily counted amongst the 12 tribes because it was 12 tribes plus the priesthood. I think the Bible says something to the effect of he didn't get the same lot or the same inheritance of as the rest of the tribes, but I'll put a note in the bottom. Um, so essentially, those 12 tribes were known as the Israelites. Now, all 12 of these tribes were considered Israelites through the time of Moses, Joshua, King Saul, King David, King Solomon, and then subsequent kings after that. But eventually, the 12 tribes split, and three of the tribes went south, and those three tribes were Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Now, those three tribes are what ended up being called the Jews. So they became the Jews as the Bible termed it. Now, this didn't happen till around Second Kings. So before Second Kings in the Bible, this term had never been used. And this term, when it was used, was only used to describe the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and the Levitical priesthood, known as the Jews. So these other 9 tribes here, Zebulun, Reuben, Simeon, Manasseh, Ephraim, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, and Issachar, are the other 9 tribes of Israel. Still would be considered Israelites, but are not considered Jews. Um, so in the New Testament, when they're talking about Jews, they're talking about this group of people, the Levites with the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, who made it through all of the captivities in the sense of like they made it through the Persian Empire and the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire. They maintained their belief system. They maintained the priesthood all the way through, Alexander the Great and all of those wars that took place up until the time of essentially the Roman Empire. And they made it through and existed at that time. So in the New Testament, when they're talking about the Jews, they're talking about this group of people. So, all Jews would be considered Israelites and Hebrews, but not all Israelites would necessarily be considered Jews. So Moses wouldn't have been considered a Jew. Abraham wouldn't have been considered a Jew. Um, because they were still the tribe of Israel. This term didn't even exist yet. So I hope that gives some clarity as to when you're hearing these terms, exactly who it's talking about in the Bible. And yeah, if you have any questions, write it down in the comments below. And thank you for your time.